Star Wars: The Last Jedi is directed by Rian Johnson and stars Mark Hamill reprising his role as Luke Skywalker once again. We see Carrie Fisher coming back as Princess or General Leia. In this case, you have Daisy Ridley returning as Rey, John Boyega as Finn, and of course Oscar Isaacs as Poe Dameron. You have Chewbacca, BB-8, C-3PO, R2-D2. The whole Star Wars family makes it into this movie, and that is all I'm going to say about the film. I'm not going to go into its story. I'm not going to go into its plot. This is a totally spoiler-free review, so forgive me if it comes off as like, you know, a little vague. I will be doing a spoiler-heavy review here within the next couple of days, so definitely keep an eye out for that if you've already seen the film. So Star Wars: The Last Jedi. I mean, if there was one word that I could use to describe this movie, it would be overwhelming. There is so much that happens in this movie, character-wise, story-wise, plot-wise, mythology-wise. So much happens in this film that just had my jaw fucking falling straight to the ground, that it's difficult to comprehend at first. I've only seen this movie once, so fair warning. I'm definitely going to see it again and again and again because there's just so much to digest. There's so much to kind of unravel and really think about. Partly because there are so many things in this movie that work, that really, really work, that wow me. Some of the greatest Star Wars moments ever are in this film that literally blew my mind and blew my expectations out of the water. But there are a couple things about the movie that I'm still kind of thinking on. It's still kind of marinating with me in a sense, and I really don't know quite how I feel about maybe some of the moments in the movie that didn't quite work for me. But let me make this very clear, guys. Even though there were maybe 2 or 3 moments in the film or sequences in the film that just didn't quite come together as well as they could have for me, the overall experience of Star Wars: The Last Jedi is nothing but astonishing. If you are a Star Wars fan and you haven't seen the film yet, of course, prepare yourself to be utterly destroyed emotionally, to cry tears of joy throughout the film, to applaud, to gasp. This movie is like a roller coaster ride of emotions. And even though this movie definitely has tons of amazing, exciting, thrilling, mind-blowing action, it also is very much a character-driven story, like any good Star Wars film is. It is a large-scale film filled with tons of beautiful visual effects and epic battle sequences and all of that, but at the end of the day, what it gets so right is the heart of its characters and giving them proper character arcs for the most part. This film does that so effectively. Kudos to Rian Johnson and his team, especially to Rian Johnson though, for writing such an amazing script to make this movie. From the journey the characters take in this movie, like I said, roller coaster ride. It goes in directions with the characters you do not see coming. I mean, it is truly a surprise and an experience. I mean, let me just cover the gamut of actors real quick. I mean, Mark Hamill in this film totally, I keep using this phrase, but it's true, blew me away. He hasn't really acted in front of the camera a lot since Return of the Jedi. He's popped up in quite a few things over the years, but as a whole, it's not really a whole lot for the last 35 years. He's mostly been behind the camera doing voice work and that kind of thing, which has really been his forte. But we always wanted to see him return as Luke Skywalker. I was just kind of nervous because he hasn't really been in front of the camera so long. He hasn't had to deliver those deep, raw emotions for quite some time, and he does it. He really does it. He takes the character of Luke Skywalker, updates him 30 plus years, and hits a home run with it. He was probably my favorite part of the entire movie because the movie really is about Luke's journey in this case. But of course, one of the actors probably on everybody's minds is of course Carrie Fisher, and there's been a lot of discussion about this over the last couple of days, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time retreading that territory, but let me say this is her best performance as Leia. It's a much more mature Leia, it's a much more level-headed Leia, a wiser Leia, and she really nails the performance. In The Force Awakens, I feel like while she was really good, she was a little underused, but I feel like she was just maybe a tad rusty. Some of the line deliveries were okay, but not great. But I just love seeing her on the screen again. It didn't really bother me or take away from the film at all. I love Carrie Fisher in this role, but she really brings it in this movie, and you feel for her so much. You're totally behind her. You're rooting for her. You're, feeling sorry for her at certain points in the film. I mean, the movie really is, in a way, as much Leia's story as it is Luke's story, even though maybe it's just a little bit more leaning towards Luke overall. But I cannot wait to see what they do with her character in the next episode. Unfortunately, whatever they do with her character in the next episode, Carrie Fisher will not be a part of it. But two actors that really stood out to me and really brought it in this film outside of the two big names was Daisy Ridley and I forgot to mention him in the intro, Adam Driver as Kylo Ren. Their journey through this film, and it is very much interlinked in the movie, had me on the edge of my seat. There's so many twists and turns in their relationship in this film that my heart was like palpitating the entire movie. I was like, just couldn't believe some of the, again, like, turns this movie takes. Every time I thought it was going to turn left, it turns right. And that's what I loved about this movie overall, is that it felt so fresh. It felt so original in a sense, but it still felt quintessentially Star Wars. But it was all driven, again, by their two performances. I mean, Adam Driver got some real meaty material to work with here, and he brought it. And Daisy Ridley as well. She had to do a lot more emotionally in this film, I think, than she did even in The Force Awakens. She really had to push herself as a character, and Rey kind of goes in a different direction at certain moments than you would maybe expect her to go based on maybe some of her behaviors in The Force Awakens. Her character definitely evolves. She becomes stronger, she becomes more sure-headed, more confident, but definitely to a fault. Now, as for some of the stuff that didn't quite come together for me in this movie, and again, there's nothing in this movie I flat out hated, there's nothing in this film that I, felt really took away overall, but there were moments or sequences in the film that I felt could have been tied together, or there would have been nice to have callbacks later on in the film that would have made sense and just kind of put a nice bow on everything. But that's really nitpicking. But a lot of it happened in the sequences revolving around John Boyega's character, Finn, and a newer character named Rose, who I love. They give her a great little backstory, and I'll talk a lot more about that in my spoiler review. But there's places they go and things they do in this movie that are essential to the plot and do definitely progress their characters. I just felt like in some sequences we either needed to spend more time, or they needed to maybe redesign maybe some of the setting a little bit, or explain to the audience a little bit more of how this is all working. And some of the other stuff that happens just feels maybe a little bit messy or fortuitous, let's say, or very lucky in their storyline that, you kind of just brush off because you're having fun. It's Star Wars. You're just caught up in the moment. But upon reflection, you're like, that could have been tighter. But again, when this movie hits, it hits hard and totally blows out of the water anything else in the film that maybe I had little tiny nitpicky problems with. Overall, guys, The Last Jedi is an experience. And even if you're not a hardcore Star Wars fan, this stands alone as a great film in and of itself. After I left the theater, I was a little bit hesitant, but I'm like, oh my God, what did I just witness? Like, I had so much to process. There's so many things that happen in this movie that I just really have to, again, really think on. But overall, and having, slept on it, I was just totally amazed by this film. It's definitely one of my favorite Star Wars films, if not maybe my favorite. That's something I have to think on. That's something I have to explore through further viewings. But nevertheless, guys, it's a great time. Definitely head out and see The Last Jedi as soon as possible. I'm going to go ahead and give Star Wars The Last Jedi a solid and enthusiastic A. And so if you've had a chance to see Star Wars The Last Jedi, go and comment below and tell me what you think about it. What are some of the things that you really liked about the film, and what are some of the things that maybe just didn't quite work for you? But please, guys, please respect your fellow fans and don't put any spoilers in the comment section. There's nothing worse than being spoiled before going into a movie that you're really looking forward to, and there are a lot of people really looking forward to this movie. So please be kind, please be considerate, but definitely fanboy out. Tell me what you think, guys. I cannot wait to see it again. How many times are you going to go see it? And what are you expecting in the next entry of the Star Wars franchise? And as always, guys, thank you so much for watching. And if you like this video and you want to see some more stuff, go ahead and click like and subscribe below. And until next time, I'm Late Never Saw, keeping you movie healthy.